I'm Joe Lewkowicz with Coldwell-Banker Realty, and this is our live stream that we do every month, the second Thursday of every month, giving you an idea of what's happening in Northwest Tampa and the real estate market in the area. So just a kind of quick update. Today is October 11th, 2018. Yesterday, Hurricane Michael hit the Panhandle. We got spared. One of the results of this is we did have some flooding over at the coast. Northwest Tampa, really just a lot of rain, heavy winds, but nothing really dramatic. One of the things that is probably going to come out of this is insurance companies are going to be stricter about roofs and what we call the 4-point inspection. Now, 4-point inspection kind of covers the roofing, the plumbing, the air conditioning, and the electrical. And the biggest issue that I'm running into is houses that are 20 years old or older, which covers an awful lot of, so a house built in 1998 or older at this point has to have a 4-point inspection for them to get insurance. And candidly, I think the insurance companies are talking about making it for houses that are newer. Roofs that are right now 18 years old or newer, most insurance companies will not insure unless it's got a new roof on it, or a licensed roofer certifies that it's got a minimum of 3 years of usable life left. Now, if a licensed roofer certifies that and it says 3 years of usable life, when the buyers get their insurance, they will have to replace it within those 3 years, or their insurance company is going to cancel them. So the longer, like if you have a 50-year-old roof, in Florida, they don't generally last that long, and the insurance companies don't care. If it can get certified that it's got 10 years of usable life left, have a licensed roofing contractor, not a regular contractor, a licensed roofing contractor put that. One of the other issues that I'm running into on 4-point inspections is electrical panels. Now, there are several electrical panels that were made in the late 70s, early 80s that are put on a lot of houses that a couple of companies did, and they're a fire hazard. So the insurance companies will not write the insurance if they have this particular panels on there. Replacing an electrical panel is going to cost about $2,000 to $2,500. These are the kind of things that you might run into, and I've run into this at least on 5 sales already this year, and had it about 4 sales last year. The roof I've run into, I have probably 10 roofs that we've had an issue with this year. And matter of fact, later on today, I'm going to talk to some people because they need a new roof. House was built in 1999. So the roof is 19 years old. People cannot get insurance without a new roof. And it affects the cost, it affects everything. But every time we have one of these hurricanes, it becomes a bigger issue. Flood insurance is probably going to become a bigger issue, and a lot of the new flood maps are coming out. So just be prepared that you can sell a house, you'll be able to get it financed. The buyers have to get their insurance. So one of the things you want them to do is, if you've sold a house, you've gone to contract, make sure the buyers are working on their insurance the first week they buy the house or right after the home inspection. Make sure they're getting on that immediately. One of the things that just happened here, this last few days, once the hurricane is in a certain area, you can't close unless your insurance has been bound, meaning you've paid for it, they've given you the policy, but if you don't have it, you're not closing on, and you're not going to close on time. So in other words, like a lot of people wait till the last minute to get their insurance. They may be shopping insurance companies. If they don't have it bound, anytime from this last Monday through yesterday, you couldn't get insurance. Now, today they'll be writing insurance again because the grid is beyond the point. But those are just a lot of things that people don't ever think about when they're selling a house. And here's what's bad. You've moved, you've packed up, you're ready to go, you're not affected by the hurricane, and your buyers can't close. Okay, so here you are, especially if you're buying another house, makes it logistics in our business become a big problem. Now, market, this is the time of year when it slows up a little bit, but I ran the numbers. And here's an interesting thing for Northwest Tampa. Our sales are best April through July. July is our strongest closing month. Now that generally represents the sales for June. Okay, slows up it goes July, August, September, October, November. But here's the interesting thing. If this is July, here's December. A lot of people, there's a market between November 10th to say December 10th, November 15th to December 15th of people buying houses. They all want to close before the end of the year. Why? They get homestead exemption. If a house has been vacant, they get homestead as long as they're in the house as of December 31st. 2, they get to write off the mortgage interest, and you can still write off in Florida $10,000 of sales tax and mortgage interest, without it being a problem. So they want to get that as quickly as you can. They want to be in the first of the year. And 3, they just said, we said we're going to buy a house before the end of the year. And candidly, the end of the year is a great time to buy a house because everybody who didn't sell it is really motivated to make it happen. So good time to buy. Now, interest rates have moved up a little bit. They've gone from, in January, 3.5% to right now we're running at about 5%. Now, historically, for someone like myself who's been around for over 40 years, that's a low rate. I mean, I was selling houses one year when they were 16%. Sold quite a few, but it was really hard to sell them at a 16% interest rate. But then the rates dropped. Within a year, they were at 10. The normal has always been running at about 6% to 7% a year. 5% is still under the historical market. However, if you've been seeing 30-year fixed rate loans at 3.5% interest rate, and now it's 5%, it's causing a problem. And I mean, not a problem, it's just more expensive to buy a house. And the home prices have not fallen enough yet. They haven't really fallen at all. Okay, still going up. Now, this is the time of year when they plateau, but they haven't fallen to where you're going to save money by waiting. So if rates go up another 1%, you're probably better off if you're thinking about waiting to see what happens. If the market drops, the market's probably not going to drop. Better to buy right now. So with that said, that's what's kind of happening in Northwest Tampa. Let's see if there's any questions that came through and see what we can answer. Okay, so here's the first one. What are generally the most cost-effective things to do to get a house sold? Like updated kitchens, bathrooms, etc. Okay, well, this is a great question. I just had some people that I was out at their house yesterday, and the husband loves doing work. It's a rental home, okay? He wants to work on the thing, but the house looks great. Kitchen's already done. Paint is the cheapest thing that you can do for the bang for the buck. Carpet and flooring is the next thing. Landscaping within reason. If your grass is shot, probably putting in new grass, adding mulch. But putting in a brand new kitchen, putting in a brand new bathroom, generally 60 cents on the dollar is what you're going to get. The way to look at it is I would never spend more than what it'll cost you. So in other words, like if you paint the house, you got a 3,000 square foot house, roughly a good paint job on that, hired by a professional is going to be $4,000 to $5,000. You're going to get all that money back out. If you put in a brand new kitchen there, though, a kitchen could be anywhere from a low number of $30,000 or $20,000 if you really do it cheaply, to $50,000, depending upon the neighborhood that you live in. It's very hard to get that kind of money out. In other words, if you're asking $400,000 or $450,000, now you got to ask $500,000, and somebody says, I don't like your granite. That's where one of the problems is. But paint, flooring, those are the best things that'll give you the bang for the buck. So let's see if there's another question that's coming through. Okay, what determines whether or not a home should be showcased? Great question. Number one, a showcased home is one that's set up by a stager, and if they're vacant, sometimes houses show great vacant. Sometimes they don't, okay? And it's more of a judgment call. But generally, the larger the house, the more expensive the area, the better it is for showcasing. We had a house staged in Cheval, and it was vacant and just looked okay. Hired a stager, and the stager was able to come out. The folks hired him on Monday. They were out by Friday. Now, it did cost cost some money, but it really did make the difference. Okay, we sold the house within, well, I think it was 30 days. And it looked a whole lot better. And I don't think if we'd done it, I think they made probably 3 times the cost of what staging did. But sometimes if your furniture looks okay, it's just good going around, with an agent like myself, say, okay, here's what you can do, and just really get the house clean a lot of times. You know, really be critical. Look at it like you were a buyer, and especially if you've gone looking at houses, it gives you a good idea, because you know, did you like anybody else's house that you looked at? Then come back to yours and take a look at it and say, okay, what can I do to make this look good? And sometimes just hire a decorator, get some professional advice there, and that's cheaper than hiring the furniture. But the more expensive the house, the better the chances are, the better for showcasing a home. See if there's another question that's coming in. Okay, do municipal rates have a large impact on property sales? Now, I'm guessing what this question means is, do municipal tax rates have a large impact on property sales? Now, Pasco County's tax rates are less than ours, and less than Hillsborough County. So a lot of people will go out there because the taxes are less. Now, some other things like community development fees, what's called a CDD. For example, Cheval, West Chase, Tampa Palms all have CDDs. Now, they're supposed to go, there's two parts to that. There's the capital part and there's the ongoing maintenance part. The capital part is for a certain period of time, usually 20 years, sometimes 30 years, okay? That's supposed to go away, but it's still $1,600. In Cheval's case, I believe it's like the total with homeowners association and the CDD is about $2,200, depending on what section, a year to live in. And another area, Stonebriar, is like $2,400. So I get a lot of people who say, I don't want a place with high homeowners association or CDD fees. So they might move to a different neighborhood where the fees are half that amount. You know, just because if they're not going to use, you know, it depends on what the amenities are. If they've got their own pool in a house and they don't care about the community pool, why should they pay another $100 or $200 a month just to be in an area that has that? Now, those areas also tend to have higher resale values or higher cost of homes. So there's a trade-off, but some people, that can make a difference to some people. See if there's another question coming through. Okay, oh, how long does it take to sell a home on average in October? If it's priced right, the market should, you should always price a house so it's going to sell to the very first person that walks in the door. If you do that, it may still not sell to them because they just didn't like your floor plan, they didn't like the colors, but the next person may come. What I'm looking for is 3 to 4 people a week looking, depending on the price range. The higher the price range, you're going to have less people. If it's like $800,000, I may get 1 a week. If it's $300,000 or less, I'm looking to have 3 to 4 a week. Now, once I get to 8 or 9 people, you know, if we haven't sold it, there's a problem, and I expect it to sell within 30 to 45 days. You don't want it to stay on the market for any great length of time. Now, the higher the price range, it's going to stay on the market most likely longer because people have many more options that they can do, including building. But at 200 to 300, a lot less options. So if it's not sold right away, you know, get it priced right, and that'll make the difference. See if there's another question that came in. Are the holidays a good time of year to sell a house in Tampa? Well, at the beginning of this, I kind of went over it. Generally, we get to the slower period. There's going to be that bump in November through mid-December, and then after that, it's going to be slow from mid-December through mid-February. So if it were me, put the house on the market now if you want to sell it before the end of the year, or wait some. Now, with the market the way it is, the only danger is if you've got a house that, say, you want to get $300,000 or $400,000 for, and the interest rates go up 1%, you're going to be affected by that buyer having less purchasing power than they did. So meaning less people willing to buy your house. The market's been really good. It's been going up here, but it's probably going to start plateauing and maybe doing a slight decline. One of the questions, I was at a big meeting over the weekend, and one of the questions people were going, and just people in general saying, I think we're maxed out, we're probably at a bubble, and do we see the market decline? And I've never had people ask that. Now, in Northwest Tampa, the only time I've ever seen prices decline was 2007 through 2010, 2011. That's the only price I actually saw prices go down and they went down dramatically. They went down almost 50%. Okay. Generally, what happens is people will take their house off the market, just won't move, and which causes an inventory problem. But then the market stays flat. No appreciation. Maybe it goes down 1%, but that's not much. But we've been having, when you're used to prices going up 5, 6, 8% a year, and it goes up nothing, people think that's a really bad market. And it's not a great market, but I just don't see prices going down. So I answered a lot. That's for the holidays. Do it before November or wait till next year. That's my opinion. Okay, another question. Can a property's sale history affect its value? Well, it can, depending upon, there's certain factors. Number one, insurance companies know if you've ever had they know every insurance claim that you've ever had. They have a database. Did you have a sinkhole? And I just had one right 3 weeks ago. The people had called somebody because a tile had come up, and the insurance company had mislabeled it as a sinkhole. Well, buyers are going to get their insurance and can't close because their new insurance company will not write it because it said sinkhole. We had to get that completely erased off the database. So that buyer's sales history can make a difference. Okay. So there's a lot of, otherwise, how many times did it turn over? And that will not affect it. Okay. Now people will say, well, why has this house been for sale for how long? That one of the biggest questions I ever get asked is when people are looking at a house, they know what they can afford. The biggest question they ever ask me is, how long has it been on the market and why? What's wrong with it? A lot of times there's nothing wrong with it. It's just been priced too high. So let's see if there's another question. What is the difference between a fixed rate and a variable rate mortgage? Great question, especially for first time and even second time home buyers. Okay, so a fixed rate loan. When the rates were 3.5% and you got a fixed rate loan, they probably locked the rate in for 30 years. Okay, 3.5%, you're paying for 30 years. At that same time, you could have gotten an adjustable rate mortgage at 2.25%, which is quite a bit of difference, 3.5 versus 2.25. But each year, and sometimes you can lock that in for 5 years, but sometimes it's what's called a 5-year ARM, which adjusts every year. It adjusts to an index, could be the treasury bills. So right now, that 2.5, okay, that you got in and you could afford it, the 3.5 was the fix. Now the 2.5's right at the 3.5 level. If the rates go up 1% more, that 2.5 could end up being 4% or 4.25. So for the next few years, you could have had a 30-year fix, but now you're at 4.25 or even 5, and you're paying that much more. And refinancing your house, the fixed rates now are running at 5, 5.25, 5.5. So, you're going to be paying more to get in there. Now, the good news was, let's say that you were looking at a $300,000 house. If you could afford it at the 3.5%, you bought a $400,000 house at 2.25. So you're able to buy a more expensive house. And now, especially if you can afford the payments at the higher level, you won't have a problem. Where the variable rate mortgages are a problem, and where they caused a problem back in the crisis of 2007 and 2008, was people were getting adjustable rate mortgages at, at that time probably 4% when fixed rates were 6%. Okay, but they really couldn't afford it if the rate jumped to here. When the rate jumped, and at the end of the 5-year period, the rate jumps anyway, or it could be a 3-year period. They couldn't afford the higher payment. So you've got to be careful with those. Make sure that if push come to shove, or you're going to get a raise or something's going to happen, that you'll have the income to where you can get in and pay that higher variable rate mortgage. So, but the conservative way would be a fixed rate mortgage for 30 years. See if there's another question. Okay, what is the best way to apply for homeowners insurance? Well, the best way, call a reputable insurance company. I have a couple of good insurance agents, some of the bigger companies, Allstate, State Farm, Aetna, Liberty Mutual. So there's a bunch of them. Get a good agent that you can talk to. The one who does your car, they probably do homeowners insurance. A lot of people use USAA if you were a veteran. So just talk to them, shop the rate, make sure the coverages can be a very big deal. And I'm not an insurance expert, but you've got to have that locked before you get to closing. See if there's another question. Is there ever a good time to offer home warranties for free? The older the house, especially the older the air conditioning and the older the water heater, those are what the big ticket items on home warranties. So, and a lot of people buying a house would like to know that the house isn't going to have a problem, that they're not going to have a big ticket issue right off the bat. Home warranties generally cost from $450 to about $800. They can cover the general things in the house, like the air conditioner, the electrical, the heating, the hot water heater, and some of the plumbing and things like that. And it has a deductible. A lot of times it's $75 per sales per call that the technician comes out there, and they're covered for a year. It'll make people feel a lot better about that. The downside of that is if you're offering a home warranty, no matter what you negotiate the price for, you're paying for the home warranty. So in other words, if you just sold the house for $15,000 less than you ever thought you were going to get, you're still paying for the warranty. So there's a trade-off there, and that's one of the things that I talk about with people. So last question coming up. Oh, okay. Are there any staple contingencies you would suggest placing in the contract? Well, there's a couple different ways to look at this. Usually, most of the offers that I get are as is, but with the right to inspect the house within a certain period of days. The standard wording in our contract is 15 days. Now there, the buyer has the right to walk away from the contract for any reason whatsoever in those 15 days. They don't even need to get a home inspection. So the advantage of that is if a person as a seller does not have to do any repairs. So in other words, if they said, I want you to replace the roof, or I want you to fix the fascia, or I want you to put a new door on, and these are all ones that I've had in the last week, you don't have to do it. The buyer's option is to not buy the house. Now, one of the other contingencies is you can write the contract that says, I as a seller will do up to a certain amount of repairs. If the repairs legitimately are higher, the buyer can do them, I can do them, or either party can void the contract. Now, that means, let's say that you put in $1,000, or the standard wording in the contract is 1.5% in the contracts that most realtors use. In other words, if you're selling a $300,000 house, 1.5% for general repairs is $4,500. Well, that's pretty steep. So you might want to change that to like $1,000 or $1,500. And if it's more, you can still do it and the buyer still needs to close. Okay? But if it's more, they can do it and still buy the house. So those are a couple of the contingencies. All these contracts are different. I advise everybody, if you have any real questions, talk to an attorney. Talk to a really good real estate agent. They can tell you what the standard ones are, but we can't give you legal advice, okay? But with 40 years, I've been doing this a long time, so I can give you an idea what's the standard. And I always use the standard forms that are done by the Florida Association. It's called a FAR bar contract, Florida Association of Realtors, the Bar Association. So that's the kind of ones to do. So I hope that helps. This is this month's live stream, and we'll have one again next month. And again, my name's Joe Lewkowicz. I'm with Coldwell-Banker. And remember, no one works harder to sell your home.